Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of Little Modular. Today, we will take a look at this beautiful and incredibly flexible and useful module called Contour 1 by Belgian company JORANALOGUE. If you have watched my previous videos, you have probably seen all the other modules that you can see in front of me because I was reviewing all of them because I just like this company and I think they're making great modules with really nice aesthetics. What is Contour 1? It is a slew limiter. In case you are new to modular world, all you need to know is that this kind of modules are a backbone of any system. You really don't have to have all the modules that are out there, and you can do without most of them, but you really won't be able to do much things without a slew limiter or slew limiters in your system. To this day, the king of all of the slew limiters was make noise mats, or half of mats, which is function. But today we have a new king, and for me this is Contour 1. First of all, it does all the things that mats or function. Let's talk about function because that's what we could compare it to. It's similar in layout and functionality. It has the same HP footprint, which is HAP. It costs about the same. I think it's about 10 euros more expensive than the function. And it has some additional features which for me are super important, like for instance a separate shape knobs for each of the fall and rise stages, which I will talk about in a second. And it has a really great LEDs embedded in the rise and fall sliders, which helps you to see what is actually happening with the signal being generated. So what do you need this for? It could be an envelope generator, it could be envelope follower, it could be an LFO, a wave shaper, an oscillator, you name it. It works in CV range, audio range, and in between, and the range of the times available here is really breathtaking. It's great for live use with this nice trigger in here, and currently I just simply can't imagine working in my system without at least one of those. Ideally, I would say at least two, like you have a full mats. Even 3 or 4 won't be too much in a medium system. Let's start with the front panel. I like its layout. Again, it's more logical than mats or function to me. It's divided clearly in half. The left part is devoted to the rising portion of the envelope, and the left side is devoted to the falling time, which is clearly labeled here with the arrows going up and down. First, you have the rise slider, and it has a really great range. I mean, we're talking as fast as 500 picoseconds, which is like super fast. And it can go up to 30 seconds because we have two basic modes here. One is the full mode, and then we have the audio mode. In audio mode, the range of both sliders is limited, so it's again 500 picoseconds to 30 milliseconds in audio range. But for now, let's stick with the full mode because we will be operating this mainly as an envelope for now. Below, we have the shape knobs for each of the stages. We can go from concave to linear to convex. Same goes for the falling part of the signal. Concave, linear, and convex. Then we can control each of those parameters with the CV. So we have a rate CV in for this one and rate CV for this one. Cool thing is these are normalized, so we can control both of them or both of these because these are also normalized just with one CV signal. Super useful. Then we have the analog in, both for CV and audio signals, depending on the use. We have a gate and a trigger inputs, and then we also have a hold signal, which allows you for freezing the whole circuit at the current state. Then we have output. We also have inverted output. Plus, we have two gate outputs for both the rising and falling stages. Whenever the fall or rise portion is active, you get a gate output out of rise and fall gate outputs right here. We also have two switches and a trigger button right here. The Audio and full I have already explained, but then we have the slew and loop. In slew, it's just like a one-shot mode. In loop, it just loops the envelope, so you can make this into an LFO or a looped envelope. Plus you have this really handy trigger button right here. This works in conjunction with the trigger input, so it works the same. When you press it, it just triggers the whole circuit, which could be really handy. You can, for instance, improvise playing live. It's not too clicky, doesn't feel stiff, it just feels perfectly nice, and it feels really sturdy, so you can punch it many times without any fear of breaking it. By the way, just like all the other JORANALOGUE modules, it is built like a tank. All the switches and everything is just, super sturdy. Let's take a look at the basic functionality. What I have here, I have a simple patch with the audio source being Bang oscillator by Livestock Electronics, one of my favorites. Bang goes to the JORANALOGUE filter 8 right here. Then again, JORANALOGUE Mix 3, which is, as you can see, triggered by the Contour 1. So we have JORANALOGUE modules working together. I have a trigger signal courtesy of Metropolis sequencer, and the same sequencer is providing 1 volt per octave information to my Bang. Plus I have a simple beat going on from Hex Inverter, drums, and Erica Synths drum sequencer. So this is how it sounds like. As you can see, I have this bass sound. That's the Bang, which is filtered by filter 8 with some hefty resonance to it. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm working in the full mode and in the slew mode, so it's a one-shot mode triggered by the Metropolis, and I can adjust the fall portion. So I'm creating a simple attack decay situation right here. Now I can modify the shape of the falling portion independently. Okay, make it more concave or convex. Then I can do the same thing with the attack portion. Okay, and I could shape those two stages independently. I can also create a simple AR envelope by plugging the Metropolis into gate. One thing about the inputs, the gate, the trigger, and the in, they are all really sensitive. You can trigger it by anything. A weak LFO, another envelope, pretty much anything. And a word about the relation between gate, trigger, and the loop mode right here. Whenever they are used, they are working in conjunction with the in signal, which is by default 0 volts. But if there is another signal plugged in here, then the minimal value of the envelopes is determined by this very signal. So whenever the envelope falls back, if there's nothing plugged in here, it falls back to 0. But if there's a signal, then it's the new minimum for the whole circuit. Now let's try to maintain the same patch without using a trigger. I can simply use the button here, but I can also make the whole thing cycling, like so. And then we will be setting the shape of the whole thing, also the timing with both of these sliders, and of course the shape knobs both work, so you can dial in precisely the exact shape of the envelope, and you will see the action of it with the LEDs, and this is really precise. That's what I'm loving it over function and maths. It's just easier to use. So this is a loop mode, this is in the slew one-shot mode, but these work together. So you can loop something and at the same time you can retrigger it with this button right here. While we are in here, we can switch it to the audio range. So now we have created a super ultra fast envelope which is trying to open this mix module. How about envelope follower? I have a similar patch here, again the same signal, but this time I have molded the drums to the input and the output of the module goes to volt per octave on filter 8. So what I'm doing here, I'm modulating the filter frequency cutoff by the drums envelope. This is how it sounds like. So you can see that the LEDs are dancing to the beat, and I can set a different response of the envelope follower. This could really animate any kind of signal in any patch. We can also try to loop it just for fun. Oh yes, please. If we go to the audio range, it will just introduce some nice FM-ish artifacts to the signal. And as you can hear, the range is insane. Just with the simple envelope follower, so many possibilities and creative options. Great stuff, really. So now what about audio patch? This could be a great oscillator. First of all, we need to be in the loop mode, so it cycles. Then we go to the audio range. Then the signal goes to my filter 8. I also have this connected to mix 3, but this time mix 3 is triggered by maths. This is how it sounds like. So you can vary the tonality of the oscillator with both of the sliders. It has a pretty wide range. You could do the same thing on the maths, but again, here it works better. It has a wider range and it's more precise as far as it goes for the volt per octave control. You can also change the shape of the wave with the shape knobs, and again you have more flexibility than on function or maths because we have two independent shape knobs for the rise and fall portion. Now a really neat trick here is to connect the fall output from here to the trigger in. This gives you a much brighter saw wave. So it's louder and brighter, has a really nice edge and ringing to it. So as you can hear, this is a really great oscillator. One more thing I haven't mentioned yet. Down in the middle here you can see this really tiny trimmer. This is meant for calibration of the volt per octave control. So if you feel that your module is not tracking properly, you could adjust that, but it should be tracking straight out of factory. It shouldn't be a matter, but if there is a problem, you can use that. You don't have to dive in and unscrew the module. It's right at the front. It's just really tiny. The whole calibration procedure is described in detail in manual, so please refer to it. So again, we have set it up, this module, as an oscillator. You can see it is looping. It's in the audio range. I have the first slew controlled by a volt per octave from Metropolis, and also we are using the mats to trigger the mix 3. But there is going to be a small modification right now. This is actually a really interesting patch from the manual. As you remember, I told you that this input right here defaults to 0 volts. But if anything is plugged in here, then the new minimum is the signal applied. So this provides us with the means of some really interesting FM, AM modulation going on at the same time. Let's listen how it sounds like. That's without the modulation. Now I'm applying a saw wave straight from my Rubicon into the in input. And whoa, my God. And as you can hear, it sounds dope. Very nice sounds. What I'm doing now is I'm varying both the frequency on my Rubicon and also changing the wave shape with the shape knobs and both of the slews. Oh my, can you hear that? It's just infinite amount of timbres. How about a filter? I have the same bank oscillator as before. I have switched the module into the audio range, both of the slews in the minimum position. Now, if we play the whole patch, this is fully open. So, when I change the position of the slews, you can hear it acts like a low-pass filter. But while we have those two shape knobs, this will sound different than a low-pass filter. And it has some really interesting timbres in it, in those in-between positions, as you can hear. The number of things you can do with this thing is limitless. If you are starting out your system, a slew limiter is pretty much one of the first things you should get. Because as you have seen, this could be everything. It's a true chameleon. So whenever you're starting out or you have any kind of system, small, big, medium, you can't go wrong with this kind of device. And Contour One is one of the best I have came across personally. I'm loving everything about it, the build quality, the aesthetics, and the precision you can dial in each function. It's just a great module. So definitely give it a go, give it a spin, If you found that video useful, please subscribe, please like, and spread the good word. Thank you very much. Bye bye, take care, and I'll see you next time.